I was born in St. Louis and grew up in Chicago, suburbs, and then I went to school in Connecticut. My mother was very generous and she gave me a little piece of garden to have for myself when I was about 5 years old. That was mine and I could plant what I wanted, and so I planted radishes, and they were very successful. After I got out of college, I went to Kansas City, eventually to Sacramento, and there are different plants in all those places. You just get hooked. You notice the foliage is quite dark. It's a rhododendron, but it's got totally different foliage than most of it. It's fairly new. That's luchuensis, and this is fragrant. And so that's one that they're using to hybridize, hoping to get fragrance into a bigger flower. This is a Benton Kagura camellia, and it's the fancy leaf. This one knew when to bloom. These were only discovered about 15 years ago out in the wilds of western China. Geranium, or pelargonium probably. And you can see how the seeds come out. And then they have a little sail on them so the wind can blow them around and disperse them. Now, these are all camellias. This is one, it is Camellia sinensis, and that's where all of your black tea comes from, and your green tea and your white tea. This one, it's called Camellia azalea. It will bloom for maybe 8 or 9 months out of the year. Of course, right now it's one of those other months, but it has a red bloom and it's really quite attractive. The yellow camellia, nitidissima. You see what I mean about the names being a little either tongue twisters or something. The seeds are how you get new varieties. If you're lucky, you get a good one. I may liberate it and bring it home and plant it just to see what it is and if it'll grow here and how it grows and so forth. Then if it thrives, why, it gets in the garden somewhere, but it doesn't go any particular place. It ends up wherever there was room for it, because I really just can't stand to let something happen to a space that's open, so I have to put something in it new. First of all, the seeds come in pods. This is a reticulata seed pod, and it has that kind of outside cover on it. Japonicas tend to be smooth and green. That's a seed from a reticulata. Number one, when I get a seed pod, I take the toe of an old nylon and I tie it around the seed. If it falls off the bush, but it won't fall. It'll just stay on. I don't lose the seed, I know which plant it was on. When the seed is ripe, this pod will start to open, about like that, and then you can see when it's all the way open why the seeds drop out, and that's what that stocking is preventing, so that I know who's what. If you want to know what you're crossing from one camellia to another, you have to take the working parts off of the female, the pollen and so forth, and then put pollen on from the plant you want. But you have to be sure that you're the first pollen there, because the early bird and the worm, same thing. That's what will impregnate the plant and make a seed. First of all, I will take a pair of scissors like this and cut off all the pollen-bearing parts of the plant. This in the center is the mother part of the plant. If a seed develops, then you'll get one of these pods. This is, when it first comes up, this is what you get. Here's one down here that has just been put in. Now, what I do with the seeds is put them in jars. I put them in what I call coir, C-O-I-R, which is coconut husks that have been shredded. with either peat moss or coir. Now there's one little trick to this, and that is the jar top, the neck, should be about as big around as the bottom. Otherwise they're hard to get out when they start growing. Then you look at the bottom and you can see when the seeds are started. Here's one that's just, and this is the root. Then poke a hole in some sod. This way it puts out a whole bunch of new little roots going out sideways, so you have something that eventually you can transplant with it out having all the roots going around in a circle in here. It's just one long taproot. If it's got the right kind of weather and soil and all, it will sprout. Cut off the taproot to about 1 inch long and plant it like this. They're going to have to wait for 3 to maybe 10 or 11 years before they bloom, which means you shouldn't start this hobby when you're very old. You ought to start young. So if you want the same plant as the one you already have, you either have to make a cutting or graft it onto some understock. But you can see how different, and how this was cut right here and this was inserted into it. This is a sample of another way from cutting off of another plant, and you make this into a wedge, the end of it, make a little cut in the understock and then slip your little wedge in there. Here's this understock, little piece like this, and this is the base that it was, there's a split made here, and that was inserted. And the plant will probably be more vigorous when it first starts out because it has a good root system on it. Otherwise it has to grow roots so it doesn't spend all its time growing upper growth and making flowers. This is of a reticulata, and it is entirely different than the leaf. And these are the earliest blooming of the camellias. They're the ones that you may see out in the winter. This one's called fishtail, and you can see his tail. It comes true in a graft, so if you want another bush with a similar type of tail, you can graft this one. This is saluenensis. Unfortunately, most species have names that are hard to pronounce or tongue twisters. That still gives them plenty of leaf, and yet it's not overwhelming in the other end. Take a hole, stick it in, just firm the soil around it. I want to be sure that when somebody moves this around, I'll still know what it is, even though it's in the wrong place. So put the date on there, the variety, and then take a plastic bag, if they haven't been banned in your area, and put it over the top, rubber band around to hold it here, and that keeps it moist in there. They need more water to get started, but any plant does. You put a new plant of any kind in the garden, you have to water it regularly until it gets its roots out. So same thing with the camellia. They are amazingly hardy, and they can take a lot of mistreatment, but you're better off mistreating them by underwatering than drowning them by overwatering. And the other thing is to see how it's planted here. Where's the ground level? And you don't want to plant it any deeper than that. It doesn't really thrive. And if you see a plant that isn't thriving, chances are it might have one of two problems. One being varmints under the ground, like our friendly little gophers who like to eat roots, or it's too deep because they have the disease that will eventually, these will develop spores after they hit the ground. It will send out its spores and they will get on to other camellias, and pretty soon they'll all look like this. It's largely because it's been passed on from plants that were infected. You can't see they're infected. They look perfectly fine. They're healthy. Flowers look fine when they start out blooming, and then they have this happen to them. This is Shirley Meneice japonica camellia. It came from Georgia, and I had 3 friends who wanted to give me something special for my birthday, so I wrote and asked about it, and they sent pictures of a bunch of, I think it was 4 different camellias, and I could have my choice. And I picked this one because I liked what looked like the paintbrush strokes on it, little white here and there. This is it. And its current plant was about probably almost 6 feet tall when I saw it. Currently, nobody commercially is in production, and it's really a carefree japonica.